So while I'm going through doing desk crits for our troubleshooting day, which will be a periodic thing, by the way, it's just something you have to do with rendering. It's incredible. It's incredibly important to look at what the defects are in your rendering and try and figure out and solve for them. It's not really something you can teach because every single one of us are going to have something totally different. So that's going to be kind of our desk crits. But in the interim, something that we're going to have to do going forward into our second module, because remember, the assignment you're going to turn in on Tuesday of next week is going to be the end of the first module, the end of week 3. So going into the next module, we're actually going to start moving outside of the building, but we're going to start pushing renderings forward with both the interior and exterior in mind. Okay, so we're going to start to design a little bit more, but really what I want you to understand is entourage. So we're going to start from the inside, really understanding how much of an effect entourage can have on what your rendering looks like. Because if you see what our rendering looks like right now, it's kind of a blank space. Like, yeah, you know, if I let this render for 3 hours, the lighting might look kind of quality, right? It might look like a nice blank empty space, but it doesn't invoke any sort of emotion when you look at it. It just looks like a dead space. So entourage, if you learn anything from this class, I will say, is the most important thing you can do in a rendering. Even a bad quality rendering with good entourage is a decent rendering. All you need to do is communicate what the space feels like when you're inside of it. Okay? And you can't do that without anything in it. So I've listed a couple of things that I want you guys to be modeling while I'm going through and doing these desk crits and checking out your work and making sure it's all good to submit. So I'd like you to get a ramp and a handrail in there. So what you're seeing in the project is basically there's 2 floors, and not 2 floors I should say, but there are 2 levels of this floor. And you don't need to see the whole ramp or the whole handrail, but you do need to see that there is a ramp and there is a handrail in it. Does that make sense? Okay, so it could be cut off sort of on the side, and all you're seeing is the edge of the ramp stop here, and then you see the handrail kind of pop out and stop. That's all I need to see. Okay, and then yeah, so it doesn't matter if it's adjacent to the wall or if it's freestanding. Also, the actual ledge itself, it's very rare in the built environment that you actually have a clean 90-degree edge for a stair. If you look at any stair, like now that I've told you, you're going to notice it. Pretty much any stair you encounter is not going to have a straight up 90-degree edge. It's always going to have some sort of either trim at the front, like a metal plate that encapsulates the concrete pan, or the concrete in the pan, I should say, or it's going to have like a abrasive strip or something so that you don't slip on it. Anyway, or it's going to have kind of a chamfer in it, and it's going to lean forward and go back an inch or something like that. So they are detailed, and the fact that it is a 90-degree angle and it is flat and there isn't any element at that corner makes it kind of pulls you out of the illusion very, very quickly. So we're going to create a little edge nosing. And if you're at all confused about what an edge nosing is, it's this. Your stair edge nosing. So this is the abrasive kind of trim piece I was talking about. If it's a built-up stair, it might actually be attached, or if it's a concrete stair, it could be built into the pan and actually embedded into the concrete. Excuse me. All right. What else? Some wall art. So entourage kind of well, you can't really say the stair edge nosing or the handrails or the ramp are technically entourage, but in our case, in the architecture school environment, it's something that we often don't fully model. But in this case, when you're creating a rendering, you have to, and so it sort of falls into that realm of extra modeling I have to do to make my rendering look good. Okay, and so that's sort of what I mean by entourage. But entourage for me generally is what we would consider a live load. Meaning things that you hang on the wall, things that you put on the floor, like tables, chairs, plants, light fixtures are not entourage, but it is kind of extra modeling that we would have to do if we weren't otherwise showing the space. Okay, floor plan, you wouldn't really see it, right? Or even in a section, you might not see a lot of the lighting in the space. So we're going to include some wall art, which actually is entourage. And we're going to go all the way down to the detail of showing some wall art lighting. So wall-mounted art lighting. I mean, you could just Google everything here and you're going to see exactly what I mean. So any of these would be fine. And you can find pre-made models, and I'll show you a workflow for it today for like how to find models that were built in, say, SketchUp, so you can save time doing this entourage-y kind of thing. Okay, you don't have to model all these yourself. There are plenty of families and models out there that you can download for free really quickly to populate your model to make it look and feel nice. Okay, so anyway, I'll show you a workflow for that kind of stuff. Additionally, we're going to create our sculpture. Okay, this is probably something you're going to want to spend a little bit of time with. I would say I might, well, no, I'm going to strike that. I think the sculpture should be something about you, okay? Because when we move forward into the next section, we're going to start to deal with a little bit of color. And we have the artwork and we have you. And you picked that artwork for a reason. What I'm talking about is the composition that you show here, okay? And we're going to start marrying those two into an architectural design. And so if whatever sculpture you pick should be about you, and the artwork color palette will be about the artwork, and we'll make it work. Do you see where we're going with this? It's like a neologism for design. It's an ethereal neologism. Actually, neologisms are already ethereal. Anyway, so something representative of your art, I might change that. Let's call it something representative of you. All right, it's going to mean more to you that way anyway. Okay, so we're also going to do some ceiling track lights. It falls into the same category as these, like track lights or something can be sort of mounted onto the ceiling or on the wall or something like that. You need to include a rope around your sculpture. It seems funny, and not all places really show like a rope around the sculpture, but because we're not putting very much in there, I'm sort of just throwing this in there to make it feel right. And also there's a challenge to it. The curve for that rope should be a parabola. So I'll leave that to you guys to figure out how you want to model that to make it look real in terms of how it drapes, right? That's kind of a more technical challenge I have for you. Not so much a creative one, but it's one that relates to how you represent architecture. If you try and show a rope and it's a perfect semicircle, somebody's going to look at it and say, that ain't right. Something's wrong there. So this is the kind of stuff that you need to be thinking about, that it's a small thing, but when you see it, it will instantly kill the magic. Okay? So anyway, we're going to include one of those. Remember the parabola. Oh, whoops, look at that. Whoops. And I think you should include a sign for your sculpture. Okay, it's not like a fancy sign or anything. You could look at like you'll see a bunch when we go to the Getty Center, but that is not what I'm looking for. Signs for sculptures, not a sculpture sign. I came up with the same thing. Museum art. I spelled museum way wrong. Museum art sign. There we go, something like this. But there's nothing that's freestanding on the floor. What the heck? Well, a lot of places put it on the walls, like next to the art, like you're seeing. Sort of here, they'll put it on the side. But anyway, you could do like a freestanding sign, or you could put it on the wall, but there should be a sign somewhere in your space. Okay? What questions do you have? Yes?
The wall art have to be included as in the pictures have to be under?
No, good question. I didn't clarify that. So that's a very good question. One thing that that I'm going to show you is sort of like an amateur level skill set, which is let's not map the material into our actual rendering for stuff like that. Okay, and it helps out with stuff like signage, provided you don't have a workflow where you have to re-render with like a bunch of different angles and stuff. There's a whole methodology that goes into like workflows and what you have to do and what you don't have to do. But with something like signage, it's much easier to just like if this is your sign, right? It's much easier to just do that in Photoshop and then stretch it and you know, make it like semi-transparent and let it bleed into the rendering than it is to try and create a texture, line it up, get the right reflectivity, get a bump map. It's far easier to do something like that in Photoshop, and that's part of the workflow in this very early module. Okay? Yeah.
The sculpture, is it the same as the one you gave online?
Well, most of us have something like this.
We'll put something on top, maybe?
So what you need to do is get rid of that and put something else there.
Oh, okay.
And if necessary, right, this is a design element as well, if necessary and it relates to your sculpture, get rid of that and put something else there. Okay? Any other questions? I thought, Eric, you might have had a question, right?
You say import from SketchUp?
Yes, I'll show you that workflow.
Our SketchUp doesn't.
Oh, our SketchUp doesn't work? Oh, no. That's right. You told me that the other day. That's terrible. Looks like, have you guys tried it recently? Have you tried it today or yesterday? Oh, man. Looks like you guys got to model it. Yeah, sorry. Looks like you got to model it. They're not hard to model. They're really easy. I mean,
Hero said we have the license for it.
yeah, but I mean, you got to get IT to actually do something about that. So, I mean, so if you look at light fixtures, if you just Google what I Googled, it's going to come out with all these really fancy ones, but like you guys could model that in like 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Something like that, a little more complex, but if you wanted to make it a little fancier, I mean, this kind of detailing would bump it up, and that's so easy. It's just like a cone with a subtraction out of it, and then like another little cone inside of it. You guys could easily do that. Even that little fancy thing, super, ultra, mega modern, you know? So it doesn't take that much time to do what you want to do. So, I mean, like, I led you down the road of looking at SketchUp, and maybe I shouldn't have, because you're going to just search for whatever looks fancy and then drop it in, and you haven't designed it. So this is actually better, because you can design your sculpture, and then you can design all the light fixtures to match it, which is what we do every day. We pick light fixtures that match our buildings. Let me show you one, actually. See if I have some of my old work on here. It's such a tiny little thing. You guys are gonna laugh when you see it. This was Hogue. All right, here it is. How do I zoom with this? Do I have to download it? I think I have to download it.
The bottom, no? Zoom?
Oh yeah,
They get them in the plus.
there it is. Oh, that's all it goes. Okay, well you can kind of see it.
So this should,
Hang on, I'll just bring it into like Photoshop or something. Oh, Photoshop's not open. Zoom, 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 zoom. There we go. All right, my claim to fame on this building, right there. This little guy. So we have this like sort of arching thing going on with the whole building. Like first tier is arch, 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 you know, or like it really all it is a tilt-up panel that has punched openings, but like we had these little relief things. That's like a 3/4 inch little bump, so it makes it look like these little arch punches. And then, you know, same thing up top. If you look at the way, well, we kind of tried to emulate it here as well. So like that was like our whole design motif for this building, and it was given to us, right? Like somebody else did the design, we picked it up, and I was like, that sucks. So we had to make it fancy, and we did. We did an all right job. And then we said, oh, we need light, we need sconces. And somebody comes up and pulls up like a somebody came up to us with something like this. And I was like, no, you will not put that light on my building. So, so I did some research and I found this, which I was like, yeah, like that fits the design. It matches the motif. So that's what you should be doing here. So you know what? Now that I said that, now that you asked that, and you guys mentioned that we don't have the license, I'm going to say no SketchUp families. You got to model it, and it should match your sculpture. I would have been a bad teacher if I didn't roll back my words right there. Okay? You guys are not looking at me very happy right now. Okay. Well, no, for real though. I think this will actually be it should be a fun experience for you. It'll definitely be an enlightening experience for you because some of you are going to just pull whatever fixture from SketchUp because I said that. And the rest of you are not, and you're going to see that the rest of you are going to have better renders, better designs. Okay? So it would behoove you to design your light fixtures for your space. End rant. All right, any other questions? All right, so I'm going to start doing this stuff. You guys can start designing and modeling. I don't want to say just modeling, but designing and modeling. And then I'll show you some other stuff as it becomes necessary.